Welcome on into another edition of Cheers to Baseball, presented by Old Dominic. He's Chris Domino. I'm Kevin McAlpin. We are less than a month away from opening day, and I know you folks out there are as excited as Chris and I are to get this regular season going. And Chris, we know that the Braves reported to spring training a few weeks ago. We know that there was not a whole lot of storylines to follow with this team. Well, one crept up over the weekend, and I want to get your thoughts, get your sort of panic meter on the Ronald Acuna Jr. story. We know that he was scratched from the lineup on Saturday. On Sunday, they come out and say, wow, there's some irritation in his knee. That's the surgically repaired knee. Where's your concern level knowing he's hopping on a plane to go to the West Coast today?
Yeah, I'll get to the plane thing in a second, but I think one of the storylines was, could a guy who won and ran away with the MVP be a back-to-back MVP? And we've seen him before. The likes of Roger Maris and Joe Morgan and guys have done it before, so it's not like he'd be the first, but it's always fascinating to find out, what does a guy do after a year like that? Can he come back and do it again? And that's really how it felt. Ronald's in better shape. Everybody said it. He's in better shape than last year. He's ready to go until he's not. So here's my thing. I don't want to get panicky. You and I have worked together a long time in a pregame show. I don't believe in day-to-day. I believe in when I see the guy, then I know he's capable of playing. So in that regard, I don't feel great about this. The thing that I'm not overly concerned with is the idea that they're putting him on a plane to go to California because they're doing that to go see the doctor who did his surgery. Right. You know, had that doctor been in Atlanta, he'd be in Atlanta. Had he been in Idaho, he'd be going to Idaho. He's going to have a few days off. They're going to put him in a nice seat with a lot of leg room. I think people are like, oh, you're going to fly the guy. Yeah, that's a good sign. He's capable of flying. Yeah. But I want to, if I'm him, I want to talk to the guy who did my surgery. The guy who did my surgery and then watch me bounce back to win an MVP last year. You want to put my mind at ease? Let that guy do the examination. And let me just say this. They're not putting him on that plane if there is, and I've seen it. I've seen 9 of them. I've seen 9 girls playing soccer tear their ACL. 9. And there wasn't one that I didn't know there's an uh-oh here. If the minute you start pulling on the leg and you go, okay, what might it be? Now, the meniscus is a little bit tougher to maybe tell with some of those types of quick examinations. But they're not putting him on a plane if he's got a tear.
Right.
And most guys can tell you, uh-oh, this isn't good. MPA meniscus. They can usually tell you that. So I don't think it's a tear, or else he wouldn't be on a plane.
Right.
Unless they're hiding the fact, but I don't think he'd be on a plane this quickly if it was a tear.
I'm right there with you. And look, I'm sort of starting to come around to your line of thinking as well. Day to day, no, I'll see you when you're in the lineup. I guess what worried me initially was I said, okay, was it the right knee or the left knee? Oh, no, it's the right knee. But the good news is our buddy Mark Bowman is down there with the team. He's in Northport. He said, I just watched Ronald walk in. He didn't even have a limp. So unless he's really hurt and really putting on a show around the media, it doesn't sound like this is a significant injury. And again, hopefully, fingers crossed, maybe later on this week we see him back out there.
I would feel a little bit better if they didn't say it happened maybe in this rundown, because swelling could have been a thing.
Yeah.
I've watched that as well, where you have just, it's random. You're on your legs a little bit too much. There's a day that it swells up a little bit. I need to sit down. The fact that they're saying this could have happened in a rundown, that sounds like a physical thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the other part of this. Normal swelling would have been a little bit okay. Again, I just don't think they're putting him on a plane if they would have thought there was a tear. The idea that he's going to see his own doctor, to me, is what he should do. Because if I'm him and I'm not playing for a few days, what the hell's the difference if I'm down in Northport, if I'm sitting in my place in Atlanta, or I'm going to California, where I'll grab a couple of meals, hopefully after some good news, where it was just one of those where you had a little bit of a scare. Now he's going to be back and ready to play baseball sooner, not later.
And it helps that he's, 25 years old, so that hopefully helps him, his body bounce back a little bit quicker as well. I know he loves to play winter ball. I know he got into it with a fan on social media the other night. He said, well, you didn't criticize me playing winter ball, and I won an MVP last season, and, now all of a sudden winter ball.
Is that definitely his account?
I believe it was, yeah.
I wasn't sure. Somebody said, oh, listen, I got a new goal. Like, I have certain goals in life. One of my goals is to not be duped by fake social media. Like, I'm really trying to play the game of not getting duped very often when it comes to fake social media.
Yeah, you got to be careful, too, because the checkmark thing is totally changed, right? So you can't just trust, oh, it's a verified account. Well, that's all changed, too.
I'll kind of go by followers. Like, the New York Past instead of the New York Post or whatever the hell it is. They've gotten a few people.
Yeah.
And if you just go to look at the followers, then I think there's usually a good chance that if somebody has over 100,000 followers, unless it's one of the great parody accounts of all time, it's probably the real thing. But again, my goal is to not get duped. When I heard Ronald was going at it with somebody, I wasn't really sure if that was true or not.
Yeah, you got to watch out for the Ken Rosenthal that has a 0 instead of the O, or some of the John Heyman with an underscore somewhere in there. You got to be careful.
2 N's.
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell's happening out there, but again, I'm just trying not to get duped.
Yeah. Don't get fooled, because especially you go on the air about it, man, we never hear the end of something like that. Hey, let's turn our attention to one of the good storylines coming out of Brave spring training, and it's this dude you see over our shoulder right here, Chris Sale. Now, I know he comes over this offseason. They make the trade. They give him a couple of year extension to stay here. It could end up being a 3-year deal if they pick up that 3rd-year option. Stuff's been good. Strikeout numbers are up. His stuff lefty has looked really, really sharp. This guy feels like a man on a mission, doesn't he?
This is 5.5 years ago, and he was on the mound to win a World Series. And we're going to see a little bit of a thing that happens after you're on the mound to win a World Series, where your family gets to enjoy the fruits of it as well. You get to bring your kids, and you get to talk to everybody who wants to talk to you. The reason we're showing this video is Chris Sale talked about how it's been a long time since he's had an off-season where he can do all his work. A couple of 5 strikeouts pretty quickly in spring training, and everybody goes, okay, what do we have here? And the big thing has always been, can he find enough of that where he's bona fide? He's going to make his starts. He's going to be a guy who, he's not a 5-and-dive mentality guy, even in today's baseball. Now, you might have to protect him from himself.
Right.
You might have to actually have a little bit more of a plan. You might give him a week where you go, you know what, we're going to stretch you out a little bit instead of on 5 days rest, and as long as it plays out schedule-wise, I do think that you want to take care of the guy as much as you can, but he's not a guy that's going to ask for it, so you might have to do it for him. Mm-hmm. I think the reason, again, we're playing this is this guy sort of has that mentality that people were talking about that you don't usually get from a pitcher. You know, who's the edge guy going to be on this team this year? Because everybody sort of played that over the last 2 seasons, losing to the Phillies. Where are you going to find your edge guy? It's tough to be a starting pitcher and be the edge guy in a clubhouse, but I think his past might tell you that he has a chance to be the one.
Well, and he's driven, too. I think that's what you like about it. He said it as much in his conference call that he almost wanted to have that last year in Boston because he felt like he owed it to the fan base. He's 34 years old. When I talked to Brian Snitker about it, he goes, yeah, you feel like this guy's been around 100 years, but he's 34. If this guy finds that form that we're watching right now, look out, National League East.
Yeah, I don't want to show my age, but I'll use an expression. He also doesn't want to go out like a sucker.
Yeah.
You know, I think there are certain guys that when they reach a height, you know, Madison Bumgarner's talking about maybe pitching again. He says, you know, I might actually try to throw for people in the summer. Okay, you want to know why? Because when you're the best in the world at something, you don't believe that you could fall so far that nobody has an interest in you. The fact that the Red Sox are rebuilding, I understand maybe why they traded him. Mm-hmm. But, you know, is another man's problem your big benefit? And if Chris Sale is a bona fide 3 and has a chance, whatever happens, God forbid, in your starting 5 where you got to move guys up and down a little bit, if the version of him that's healthy, and it's a guy who's, I don't know, I don't want to play percentages, but if he's 80% of him at his best, you want to tell me there's 149 guys better in the world doing that job? Because there isn't.
Right. My phone in my pocket is going bananas, and I think it's because the news that came out right before we started recording, I don't even know if you saw this, Zach Wheeler signing a 3-year deal extension in Philadelphia. Chris, that's $42 million per year. This dude, the reason I bring it up, is $38 million for 2 years. So again, price of starting pitching continues to go up and up and up. And if we're seeing anywhere close to the version of Chris Sale, healthy version of Chris Sale we've seen in years past, I mean, again, put Alex right at the top of the list for executive of the year.
Right, but I'm going to pull back a little bit because when you did the 2 years, you settle the guy in, you believe him. He's now shown in his 2 spring training starts that maybe he wasn't kidding about the offseason being one where he went into camp feeling a little bit better, but it's also a risk. Now, any pitcher, you sign a guy for whatever the money is, $1 million or $100 million, you've got to worry about every time he literally snaps one. You got to worry about every time he takes the mound. The Zach Wheeler thing is interesting to me because now there's, I don't know if you heard about this, there's a chance that they might be looking at a Blake Snell 1 year to get him, or a 2-year, and all of a sudden Philadelphia could have the Aaron Nola's back, Zach Wheeler's comfortable, he's got his extension.
Yeah.
And is there a chance that a good version of Blake Snell comes over on a cheaper deal and Philadelphia gets in on it? Well, All of a sudden now, if you're talking about who's beaten you in the last 2 years, the race to October and which starting staff is healthiest is going to be a conversation again.
Yeah. You made me worried, by the way. I had to check to make sure that the Blake Snell thing hadn't happened.
Yeah,
I wanted to make sure that wasn't what all these texts were about, too.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you what I was told something yesterday that Philadelphia might not be done. Keep an eye on the possibility of, the Bellinger deal is 3 for $80, but there's an opt-out after 1, opt-out after 2. He's a Boris guy, and Boris maybe doesn't want to play that, but he's getting this guy $30 million. So what's the downside? Except Bellinger doesn't have $150 million guaranteed, and I'm not saying that's not a big thing. But is there a chance that Blake Snell coming off of Cy Young, because of the 2 really good years and a whole lot of mediocre years, what does he have to do?
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe Philadelphia is the place where he can prove again in October that he's a guy that can actually go get a longer-term deal. And with Philadelphia, I don't know if Dave Dombrowski will do a deal like this, but would he do a deal where it's a 2-year deal, but it's an opt-out after 1 for Blake Snell? Maybe.
Yeah.
But again, I was told yesterday, keep an eye out because they might be looking at Blake Snell to solidify their top 3 as much as anybody in baseball.
It's March 4th, I think, without looking at my calendar. Are you surprised Blake Snell's still out there? Like, I thought for sure this would be one that's done.
Yeah.
At least before camps opened up, I guess.
Well, so here's the thing. How much did you say Zach Wheeler's getting a year?
$42 million a year.
Okay, Blake Snell's going to say, what about my 2 Cy Young awards? And then I'm going to say, yeah, what do you want? No, I'm not going to give you that because I look at the other years. And I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to invest in you. Nola got $162 million.
Mm-hmm.
Blake Snell's probably supposed to be able to go, but look at me. Why don't I get that?
Right.
Because nobody wants to give it to you.
Right.
It's real simple. And maybe being a Boris client is not helping him now because maybe there's an unreasonableness to what Scott Boris wants. Look, do I believe he started maybe at 240? Yeah. Do I believe, well, maybe we'll do 180, 140, and now the number's going down.
Yeah.
I think his best bet might be doing a Bellinger type deal where it's a 2 or 3 year deal when the club concedes to opt-outs as well.
Yeah, bank on yourself and try to hit that open market again.
Or let the club just say, by the way, there's a chance we have to eat it if you're not good the first year because you're not going to opt out. But we're getting 2 years of a guy that we think, even at those numbers, it's at least viable.
Yeah, it is very interesting. By the way, Eddie Rosario still unsigned as well. I thought for sure that was a guy that was going to get scooped up. Feels like he's probably kind of waiting in the wings. An injury happens at a camp somewhere. Some team swoops in and picks him up for a year. I know he's another guy that wanted a multi-year deal, but obviously 30 teams in baseball said they're not interested at least yet in that deal.
May I?
Please.
Yeah, shit changes quickly.
Yes, it does.
I mean, it really does. There are a lot of guys, Cody Bellinger included, coming off the year he had last year. Blake Snell coming off the year. They go home, and if they're married or whatever their family situation is, and they say, honey, we are looking at $200+ million. Until you're not. And that's how quickly stuff changes.
Yep.
I don't know what Zach Wheeler thought he was going to get when he signed his first deal. Some people said, well, let's see how he does in Philly. Philadelphia, they boo you if you're not good. Yeah. He was in New York, and he did fine, and now he's in Philadelphia, and they like him and trust him so much, they gave him a contract for $42 million a year because they know he's not going to wet himself when the opportunity comes to be sort of a nut-up type guy in October.
It's good work if you can get it, right?
There were a lot. I'm just telling you, though, there were a lot of guys who said, baby, when we hit free agency in 2 years, the numbers that we're going to hit. Now, nobody's poor, but there are a lot of guys who have to go home and explain or have their agents explain to their loved ones why they're not getting a deal they thought they were going to get a couple of years ago.
No doubt about it. Hey, let's shift gears real quick because I know you mentioned the National League East. And we know, obviously, the Braves' goal every year going into camp is to win the division, right? You want to get the time off. Or do you want to get that time off? It's a really interesting debate you and I have talked about on the pregame show the last couple of years down the stretch and into October. How do you find a way to fill that void? It's really interesting.
Yeah, so Brian Snitker was asked about it, and he said, he was on a Zoomish podcasty, whatever it was, and Brian Snitker talked about the idea that he doesn't like the playoff format, and he has now made it a little more public. I'd asked last year, and I was sort of lame-based when I just said, there might be a moment when you go, what's the first round going to be? Is it 2 out of 3? Is it 3 out of 5? Well, what about this? What if I don't want the time off? What if I actually say in a best of 3, I only have to win 1, but I get to keep playing? I get my 2 days off. I get to play on Wednesday, Thursday, whatever the hell it is, and then maybe I go into the next round of the postseason. Would anybody be willing to take that chance?
Yeah.
Well, Brian Snitker didn't go as far as my question, but he did say, oh, and by the way, we will be trying to win the division again, looking forward to 5 days off. So at the end of it, I don't like it. I don't like the way it's played out. But it doesn't sound like he or this team is thinking about anything other than winning the division again this year.
And obviously, that's, I think, where the mindset needs to be, right? You need to have that attitude that we're going to go out and win the division and put ourselves in as good a spot as we can for October. But look at the teams that have had the better records the last couple of years. They haven't been the one. The Arizona Diamondbacks are the reigning National League champions.
Yeah, I would almost like to make it an option. If you're feeling good, you're going to be at home and you have to win one less game than the other guy. Do you want to keep playing? Are you willing to take that risk?
Yeah.
Now you would say, well, hold on. Would an ownership and somebody say, we've got a next round of playoffs. It's a longer playoffs. Why would we ever do that? We could lose money on the deal. Yeah, I guess you could. But then ask your manager and team what they want to do.
Yeah.
So there's a business decision. There's a smart business decision. There's a baseball decision. I'm not so sure it's not a smart baseball decision now.
Yeah.
You know, if I try to weigh the four things, and I think there are four scenarios, I'm not so sure the idea of continuing to play baseball is in a way that I would think about going.
It really is interesting because we've seen so many teams that get hot down the stretch. See the 2021 Braves. They're not above 500 till the second week of August. They catch fire. They win 88 games in the regular season and rip right on through October. It is amazing, though, that you can win 105 games and 4 days later you're done.
I don't care what they win.
Yeah, I don't either.
I don't care about the number. Just
I'm with you.
Season. I don't care what the number is. Win a division, don't win a division. You know, I said they should put up the banner now. Don't even do it on opening day.
Yeah.
Put up whatever the sign is. If you do it again, put it up in January when guys are just working on the field. So here's the other thing about that, and we'll finish up with this. The idea that you can try to manipulate, if you win the division by enough games and your 1 or 2 doesn't go that Friday, Saturday, Sunday, unless you just give them spot work to get it.
Sure.
They're not pitching competitively for upwards of now 2 turns through the rotation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we talk about the offense. Can you really simulate in live BP? Well, maybe not. But what if you have a couple of guys who haven't thrown a meaningful game in a few weeks?
Yeah.
As starting pitchers. You know, there's the idea that it's not just a hitter's thing. It could be, can I fire that guy back up and get him going quickly enough in the first and second game of a shorter series to make sure that they're really going to be the guys they were all year.
And I know it's something you and your partner here locally in Atlanta, Nick Cellini, talked to Rick Kranitz about when you were down at spring training, the concept of a 6-man rotation. But Kranit's point is, okay, now you get a day off.
No doubt.
And now you're 7 days, or maybe now you're 8 days if you get a rain out. That goofs everybody's schedule up. And you've heard the same thing. Starting pitchers, they're creatures of habit. They want to stay on that every 5-day routine. So it is interesting that you're going to go that long. You just have to do the old spring training back down. I'm going to have you throw 2 or 3 innings and just pray to God or pray whoever you believe in that everything goes well and nobody gets hurt.
I don't know if anybody will bring it up because I don't even know if baseball wants to get tangled up in the thing. The other part was everybody said, well, you should be able to pick who you want to play, which to me is interesting. It's interesting, but I think the real baseball decision is, would I really ever concede trying to play a short series with an advantage? I'm at home and I have to win one less game. Would that be good enough to get my guy fired up? And remember this, if you threw your number one, let's say, on a Tuesday, and then you win the series, he can come back on Sunday, which would be maybe a game 2 of the next series. So, I don't know. I just think it's something that when I heard Brian Snitker say, I don't like it at all, but we'll be trying like hell to win a division to get 5 days off. I said, well, okay, sometimes you might not like it, but you're also not willing to do something to change up the mindset of winning the division, not winning the division.
I don't think the messaging from a manager would go well. We're just trying to get the second wild card. We'll see what happens. We'll roll the dice and just get in. Can you imagine the reaction of a manager saying that?
But can I be honest?
Sure.
If I'm Brian Snitker, here's what I would say. I don't care how we get into the postseason.
Yeah.
I just want to be the best team in the postseason.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there was a thing, Braves winning a 7th division title. I don't think there's a fan out there, with all due respect to what a division title is. I'm not disrespecting it. But there's not a Braves fan out there that gives 6 rips about winning the division. You know, you were better than the Phillies for the regular season? How's that gone the last couple of years?
Yeah.
Oh, you were better than the Mets and the Marlins? Who cares?
Right.
You're better than Washington? Believe me, no one cares. So I wouldn't mind if Brian Snitker said, hey, man, are we looking at a division? Yeah, if you guys want to quote me, we're looking at I don't care. I don't care if we win a division or not. I want to be in the postseason, and I want to be better in October than anybody. That would be my answer if I was a manager who's won a division as many times as the Braves have.
Well, they certainly put themselves in a great spot with this rotation, with this everyday lineup. Bullpen looks as good as it's ever been. Ken Giles, by the way, keep an eye on him for the next couple of weeks in camp. He has, I know it's only 2 outings, but what he did in his first outing against Harper, Castellanos, and Bohm, I believe it was, with 3 straight strikeouts on sliders. He's not throwing 100 anymore, but that breaking ball is really, really good. Dark horse for the pen. I don't know where the hell you put him, but I mean, why not, right? At this point.
Well, he's gotten people's attention.
Yeah.
Because he's gotten people out in the major leagues. He's been down for quite a while. Is that a good thing or a not so good thing? The rigors of the season, you know, that's gotten guys younger than him and guys who have thrown as recently as last year. So we'll find out. Is it a story yet? No. Is it interesting right now? Yeah. Because somebody could be fighting for a job, and they might be fighting a guy who hasn't pitched in the majors in a while.
Yeah, 4 years. We'll see what happens. And if he does make it, I bet you he's going to want a bottle or 2 of Old Dominic to celebrate that long journey.
Oh, yeah, good thread count.
League
minimum.
Oh, yeah.
Another year to the pension. I'll drink right out of the bottle.
Hey, by the way, speaking of, you know, we've done this show all off season. I know you've been on some meds. You're like off the meds now. Are you good to start little fingers, 3 fingers again?
Oh, listen, you think
You're good?
that stopped me?
No.
I stayed away from the uppest of the uppest medicines, in part because I'd like to drink.
Yeah.
And on those they really frown it. Oh, don't do that. So I've stayed away from the strongest of stuff. I'm on the stuff that. Do I think I can have drinks? Yeah.
Yeah.
If I'm not supposed to be, because I have been.
Well, we've been going through some of this in my house. I got a bunch of guys in the neighborhood that are big bourbon guys. They're big whiskey guys. We enjoy it. I know you will too. We did the cask strength. I think it was 117 proof a couple of weekends ago. Yeah, it was some solid juice.
There's nothing better on a chillier night. I don't want to ask Amanda because you are drinking age, right, Amanda? You're old enough? Okay.
Thank God.
There's not much better on sort of a chilly night where you go, oh, it's brown liquor night.
Mm-hmm.
Feels pretty good. And there's ways that these guys have actually taught us that you can make it a spring and a summer drink on top of that. I think, again, I was one of those idiots who said, brown liquor seems like a winter thing. Yeah, it depends what you do with it.
Mm-hmm.
Depends how you like it. Maybe you throw a cube in during the spring and the summer. Maybe in the winter you just go, I'm cubeless. Neat.
Yeah, I can't do neat. My buddies make fun of me. I can't do it. But this stuff is good. It's smooth. We enjoy it. We know you will too. We want to thank Old Dominic for being part of our coverage. Chris, when we get together next week, we'll be another week closer. What are we, only like 3 weeks away, 3.5 weeks away from opening day, man? Can you believe it?
That's it. It's little leagues are opening up, and that means that the big boys are not very far behind.
By the way, I did have a cocktail to celebrate my son Max, who's in studio with us this morning. He had pitched a scoreless second inning in his opening day outing on Saturday. Now, we came up short. Kid got the game ball, made a couple of really nice plays in the field. So cheers not only to you, our fans, but to my son Max and the Rowdy Royals who get going here.
Juice boxes all around.
That's right. Juice box. Hey, no, we had Chick-fil-A. Team mom, Katie, stepped it up with the Chick-fil-A.
Things were a little different.
Post-game, yeah.
A little different.
Exactly right.
Eating these kids meals after games now, huh?
Exactly, yeah. Oh, yeah. We don't mess around.
All right.
Yeah. We'll
oil, I think.
We'll do it again real soon. We hope you enjoy some Old Dominic like we do as well. For Chris, I'm Kevin. We'll see you again next week on another edition of Cheers to Baseball, presented by Old Dominic.